access to information and networking. Benefits to accreditation are quality, I think. It makes it much easier to put together a quality business program as an accredited school.
I was president of the Midwest this past year, and the executive director of the competing accreditation bodies attended our regional conference. Obviously, he was stealing our ideas, but it also allowed us to discuss and consider what they're doing. So there are those networking opportunities. Anyone else here? Question? Yes, sir.
My question is with regards to the strategic planning activities that you do for your university. And the first question is really, how much of private sector consulting do you do in that activity? And you know, how has this influenced basically your strategic plan? Because obviously it's the private sector or the government sector who will take on the graduates of the business program. So that's my first question. And the other thing is, what was your experience in actually tracking how well your graduates do in the field? Because I would tend to think that in order to design a good program, you'd have to have some feedback on how the graduates actually did on the field to basically calibrate, are we teaching them the right things, or do we have to sort of reconfigure? Thank you.
I'd like to comment on the second process. It was mission-driven, process-oriented, outcomes-based. In that time frame, we used what we call secondary input data for outcomes, job placement rates and salary and so forth, which is still data that you can use in your process, but it is something that we seek to get. The challenge of using the data as to how well will be students being placed and how well they're doing is the lead time, and the graduate's been out a couple of years, and by the time you find out how that's doing, there may be very little opportunity to make an impact back in. But with respect to the stakeholders, and I think that was your first question, the role of the industry in designing your curriculum and that sort of thing. Did you understand that? Okay. Michael, you want to start, or?
Actually, we don't have any kind of experience of doing private sector consulting. If we need help regarding the strategic planning, we usually our alumni are invited, and also, you know, we because of the networking of the IAJBS, so we sometimes we come for help, asking the other things, either in the U.S. or in Europe. That's my answer to the first question. As to the second part, the graduates, we believe because we have been accredited for only 5 years, so the students started to understand that, you know, we are AACSB accredited business school. I think the students they tend to figure out why we put lots of emphasis on a student exchange program, why we are emphasizing the students that they need to have a minimum English proficiency before graduation, things like this. So I had some chances to talk to our recent graduates. They believe our focus on language proficiency and some other related focus areas, like I have just mentioned. You know, they believe it's a good direction for them to develop. And I also have the opportunity to talk to some big companies over there in Taiwan. They told me they are quite satisfied with our graduates. So I think that should be good signs for AACSB accreditation. Yeah.
So I understood the first part of the question is what involvement, if any, do you have the business sector in your strategic planning? And well, I rely on my advisory board, so we get as part of the strategic planning team, we'll have members of advisory boards as part of that team. So they'll go through the process along with the faculty participants and student participants and so forth. Okay, so I do have people from the business community involved. On the second question about tracking the progress of graduates, the university does a periodic email survey of all alumni and then can drill down to business student alumni specifically, which has a whole series of questions about how well they were prepared, where did they maybe come up short, how could the university have done better, and so forth. So we get those results. Again, I mentioned the advisory board earlier, but again, the advisory boards are also a source of feedback on students because your students are working in the companies that those advisory board members represent. So they provide you feedback. When you see alums, you also get that feedback. You can query them about how well things are going, how well they felt they were prepared. Did they feel like their Seattle U education was just as good as the education that their peers were getting in other institutions? So sometimes it's pretty specific, sometimes it's anecdotal, but we're always trying to come up with information about how well the students are doing. And then finally, we're always trying to keep up with the professional progress of students, have them tell us where they're working, what kinds of roles and responsibilities they have. That's kind of a alumni relations function of the university now. So they're always asking students to update that or alumni to update that information. So you can see how they're progressing in their careers. That gives you a good sense of how well they were prepared by